seated. Preach the word, brother.
Thank you. I don't know what to do without the clicker. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. Give you peace while we seek the things that are above. And it's seeking, that's what we do, isn't it? We're all seeking for something. And we're seeking for something because we're looking to fill a void that's in us. I think we can push to the next slide. There we go. We're seeking to fill this emptiness that's inside us, this void, because God created us. And in creating the soul that's in us, we belong to him. And so the soul is always seeking to get back to him because sin separated us. And because sin separated us, our souls are continually looking for a way back. Now, unfortunately, we replace God with things that we think will fill the void. Things like substance abuse, whether that's alcohol or drugs or something else, or even overeating. Gluttony, there we go, even gluttony, right? Maybe we fill that void with professions. Maybe we seek to be at the top of our profession, and so we're what we call a workaholic, where we spend all of our time working. Or maybe we're a hobbyaholic. We spend all our time working on hobbies, whether it's golf or computers or boating or fishing or whatever it might be. We spend all of our time on that. We've replaced God with those things. In Matthew chapter 22, starting in verse 20, Jesus said to them, "Whose likeness and inscription is this?" And if you're not familiar with this text, somebody raised a question, should we pay taxes to Caesar, right? Because everybody knows that a Jew in that century thought that they shouldn't give money to an opposing force or an occupying force, that money belonged to the temple. So should we give taxes to Caesar? That was the question. And Jesus says, "Whose likeness and inscription is on this?" holding out a coin. They said, "Caesar's." Then listen to Jesus. Then he said to them, "Therefore render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's." Do we not hear that? Whatever belongs to this world can stay in this world. And whatever belongs to God, we ought to be giving it to him. Guess what, brothers and sisters? Our soul belongs to God. Our soul is telling us where it belongs. And instead of listening to it, we fill that void with so many other things. We should listen to what our soul is telling us. Why? Because we're raised. We are raised with Christ in chapter 3 and verse 1. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. You see, Paul reminds the Christians there at Colossae of their salvation. If you have been raised with Christ. You see, Jesus died, Jesus was buried, and Jesus was raised. Guess what? So have we. We have died, we've been buried, and we've been raised. And in that reenactment, we made a commitment to God. In the letter to the church at Rome, Paul admonishes the Christians there in chapter 6, starting in verse 1. the thought process in that particular church was something that along the lines that Jesus came to remove sin from the world. Therefore, there is no more sin and we can do whatever we want. And Paul asks them a question. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Now, we often think that's a rhetorical question, right? And in this case, rhetorical meaning a question whose answer is so obvious that it just doesn't need to be said. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? That's a rhetorical question, but it's not, because Paul even answers that question. And he answers it emphatically. By no means, he says. And literally, the Greek word translated there, the two words, not happening. Sometimes we think that's colloquial, don't we? Sometimes we think that's one of those phrases, that's not happening, right? And we've all said that. When something comes up and you don't want to do it, that's not happening. Well, that's what Paul says right there. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Not happening. By no means. If you read the King James Version, it's so emphatic there that King James, the translators, use the phrase, God forbid. Shall we, who died, how can we, who died to sin, still live in it? How can we, who died to sin, still live in it? Why do we seek the things on this earth? How can we who are Christians still be seeking the things of this earth instead of the things that are above? And he goes on to remind them in verses 5 and 6 of Romans 6. For if we have been united with him in a death like his, for we have died with him, if we've been united with him in a death like his, we shall certainly, you hear that? We shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. And here's the reason why in verse 6. We know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? No. The body of sin was brought to nothing so that we would no longer be enslaved to sin. This is such an important moment for us as Christians. This reenactment of his death, burial, and resurrection is so important. It's where we say no to sin. It is the imitation of Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. Unfortunately, so many religious institutions have watered this moment down to nothing but a simple prayer, asking Jesus into our hearts. But this, brothers and sisters, is a marriage. In our reenactment of his death, burial, and resurrection, we are marrying him. The church, the church is the bride of Christ. We are betrothed to him. So if we have been raised with him, seek the things that are above. We must always remember that we have been raised with Christ. We must always remember that we are married to Jesus. I know that sounds like a harsh, not a harsh word, but it sounds like a serious commitment, doesn't it? You know, when you marry your wife or your husband, that's a serious commitment, is it not? Well, brothers and sisters, Christianity is a serious commitment. That's why he tells us, if you've been raised with Christ, to set your mind on the things above. In verses 2 and 3 of Colossians 3, set your minds on things that are above, not on the things that are on earth. For you have died, he says it again, doesn't he? For if you've been raised with Christ, he's reminding them again, for you have died and your life is hidden with Christ in God. Now, I will tell you, I'm talking a lot about forgetting about the things of the world and setting your minds on the things above. To set means to give careful consideration, to concentrate on. So to set your mind on things above does not mean to ignore everything else, okay? It means to concentrate on. It means to give careful consideration to. Too often, we concentrate or give careful consideration to the mundane details of this life, don't we? I love Francis Chan. If you've not ever heard of him, he's got some great things to say. I love his illustration, and I've actually used it once many years ago. David helped me out. He ran a rope all the way from this stage, all the way out the back of the auditorium to the back door there. And it was it's 100 feet of rope. And on the very end, I had put 2 inches of black tape, of electrical tape on it. And that rope represents eternity. And guess what that 2 inches of black tape represents? Our life here on this earth in the flesh. And yet, we make all of our decisions based on those 2 inches of tape and not based on the 99 feet of rope that's still left. We are too concerned with the mundane details of this life, but our life here is short. The psalmist says in Psalm 102, verse 3, "For my days pass away like smoke." Compared to eternity, our lives are short. So why do we spend so much time concentrating on our physical lives instead of our spiritual lives? Why do we spend so much time seeking the things that are on earth instead of seeking the things that are above? Jesus rebukes Peter for that very kind of thinking. Jesus just finished telling his apostles that he was going to be arrested. He was going to be hauled away and put on a cross. He was going to die and be raised 3 days later. And Peter says, "No way. No, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to let it happen." And in Matthew 16:23, Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." Did you hear that? What did Jesus call Peter? A hindrance. You are a hindrance to me because your mind is set on earthly things and not on spiritual things. In his case, in Peter's case, he was looking for that earthly kingdom. He wanted Jesus to sit on the throne and rule Israel and kick Rome out of Israel so they would no longer be an occupied country. They wanted to be free to have their own government and their own temple and their own sacrifices. And what does Jesus say? You are a hindrance to me. Oh, we've got to get our mind off of this earth. We have to set our mind on the things above. And Paul gives us a little taste of what some of those things might be in Philippians 4 and verse 8. He says, "Finally, brothers, whatever is true." We talked a little bit about true this morning, didn't we? We talked about absolute truth, and what did we call it? The gospel, right? The word of truth, the gospel of truth. Set your mind on whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable. If there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. My brother Stuart and I were having a quick conversation this morning before the service started. And we were talking about idle words, is what we were talking about. And we were talking about the TV shows that you can't get away from idle words. You can't get away from from watching TV shows that take the name of the Lord in vain. I mean, they're everywhere. Even PG, which stands for parental guidance, right? Even PG TV shows have these idle words, and they have nudity in them, and all kinds of stuff, and immorality. But yet we sit down and we turn them on and we watch them. I'm going to use this illustration. It's not in my notes, sorry, but I'm going to use it anyway because I used it with Stuart. There's this illustration that somebody showed me once or told me once, and I love it. This mom was going to make a batch of chocolate chip cookies. So she gathered her kids together to help her, and she gathered all the things. She gathered the bowl and the spoon to mix, and she gathered all the ingredients. She gathered the flour and the sugar and the chocolate chips and the milk and everything and started to stir it together. And she turned to her kids and said, oh, I need you to go out to the front door and scrape some of that bird poop off the ground because we're going to put a little bird poop in here. And the kids are like, oh, we don't want to eat that if it's got bird poop in it. But it's just a little bird poop, right? It's okay. It's just a little bit. You see where I'm going with this? It's okay if there's just a little immorality in this TV show. And there's okay if there's just a little language in the movie we're watching, right? That's okay, isn't it? Where are we supposed to set our mind? Whatever is pure, whatever is honorable, whatever is true, whatever is excellent, whatever is commendable, whatever is, did I say pure already? I must have. If there's anything worthy of praise, is somebody spouting idle words worthy of praise? Is watching somebody be immoral on the TV set worthy of praise? Remember, you have died. Paul even gives us another reminder of our salvation. First, we have been raised with him. Second, we have died with him. We have died to all the earthly things. Listen to him in Colossians 3, verses 5 through 10. That wasn't part of the text that we read this morning, but it all combines together. He says, put to death, therefore, because you've been raised with Christ, because you're setting your mind on things above, put to death, therefore, what is earthly in you. Sexual immorality, impurity, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. On account of these things, the wrath of God is coming. In these you too once walked. Isn't that the truth, brothers and sisters? We're broken people, is it not? Are we not? Sorry. We're broken people. That's why we needed the Savior. That's why Jesus had to come to this earth. That's why Jesus lived the pure life that he lived. That's why Jesus was arrested. That's why he was crucified. That's why he was buried. And that's why his tomb is empty. Because we are broken people. Adam and Eve set their mind on the things of this earth, did they not? And we have followed suit, every one of us. In these you too once walked when you were living in them. But now, you see that contrast? You used to do those things, but now you must put them all away. Anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Ooh, that's a big one we talked about in our Bible class today. Obscene talk. What is obscene? They didn't have those words in the first century, so we can say them here because they use different curse words. Oh, a rose by any other name is still what? A rose. So if you substitute some other word, what do you still mean? The same exact thing. Do not lie to one another, verse 9. Seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices. You have died with him. The old self was crucified. You put off the old self with its practices. And you have put on the new self. You've been raised with him, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its creator. After the image of its creator. I want you to get this this vision in your mind. I want you to put this image in your mind of Jesus sitting down in front of the TV watching one of these shows. What do you think that would be like? First of all, I can't even imagine it. I can't even think he'd be sitting down and watching one. Brothers and sisters, we are renewed in knowledge after the image of our Creator. I can say with absolute surety that there is nothing on this earth that can compare to our salvation. There is no Marvel movie. There is no DC movie. There is no golf course. There is no computer game. There is no insert whatever you want to there that compares with salvation. Paul even tells us that everything he had is worthless garbage. And the Greek word there is sewage, and it actually even is worse than sewage, compared to knowing Christ. In Philippians 3, verses 7 and 8. But whatever gain I had, in other words, worldly gain, remember, he was advancing among his peers, right? He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. Whatever gain I had, and he was gaining, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything. Do you hear that? That's an all-inclusive word, is it not? Every worldly thing that Paul had, he counted as loss. Didn't matter what it was. Whether it was a 1984 Volkswagen van or a 2021 gold-plated Cadillac, didn't matter. He counted it as loss. It meant nothing to him. It had been renounced. Oh, that brings up Luke 14:33, doesn't it? Unless you renounce all that you have, you cannot be my disciple. I counted everything as loss. Now listen to this, the last part of this sentence. Because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. People say knowledge is power. It is, if it's the knowledge of Jesus. Because the knowledge of Jesus is the power of salvation. And there's nothing worth more than salvation in this world. For his sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish. There's the word I was talking about. In order that I may gain Christ. Oh, in our seeking, sometimes we put a pretty high price tag on those things, don't we? Whether it be our profession or our hobby, whether it be intimacy, whether it be alcohol or drugs, we put a pretty high price on those things, don't we? But they're worthless. They're garbage. They're rubbish. Don't allow the temptation of material wealth. Don't allow passion. Don't allow greed. Don't allow whatever it is that keeps you from the Father to interfere in your relationship with Jesus. Because it is not worth it. I'll say it again. It is not worth it. Because we have died. And since we have died and are hidden in Christ, we should set our minds, we should concentrate on, we should give careful consideration to the things of heaven. After Paul tells them to put away all that stuff, he says in Colossians 3, starting in verse 12, put on then, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts. Here's some more of those things that we're supposed to be seeking. Compassionate hearts. That's a tough one, and I want to sit there for half a second. Because I think we, as human beings in the United States of America, have lost the art of compassion. Not sympathy, but empathy. Not simply feeling sorry for somebody because of the things they're going through, but feeling those same things with them. That's empathy. And compassion means we feel those things so strongly that we're moved to action. Somebody is hurting. I'm hurting with them. What can I do so they don't hurt as bad? Do I need to sit with them for a couple of hours and let them cry on my shoulder? Do I need to fix them a meal? Do I need to take out their trash? What do I need to do to help this person not feel so hurt? That is a compassionate heart. Kindness, humility. That's the hallmark of a Christian, is it not? Being humble. Jesus was so humble that he died on the cross. Yet he was God, and he didn't think equality with God was something he didn't grab. Philippians 2. Meekness. Meekness is not a synonym for powerless. I want you to know that. Moses was the meekest man on earth, but yet what did he do? Boy, the Red Sea split, did it not? He drew water from a rock. Patience. That's a tough one, is it not? Patience. We're such a, what I call a fast food society that, we've got drive-throughs and drive-ups, and I've used this one before, but it's so funny to me that I got to use it again. You've got Sonic. In Sonic, you never have to get out of your car, do you? You can just pull up, punch the button, and get what you need. Well, do you know Sonic has a drive-up window, too? I don't think the ones here in Plainview do, but there's some in Lubbock and there's some in Littlefield. They got drive-up windows. I don't even understand that. Is that so you don't have to put your car in reverse? I'm clueless now. You never have to get out of your car anyway. We are such a fast food society that we have lost the art of patience. At least my generation has. If you go back to the generations before me, I think there was a lot of patience. But as soon as they implemented credit cards or take it home and pay for it later, I think we became a fast food society. But we have to regain our patience, because that speaks directly to the next verse in verse 13, bearing with one another. That takes patience, does it not? To bear with one another. And if one has complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive. And above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Brothers and sisters, this is how we set our minds on the heavenly things. These are the characteristics that God expects us to have. These are the characteristics that God expects us to live by. When we suffer loss, when we experience tragedy, we respond with kindness. We respond with humility. We respond with compassion and patience. When we are wronged, we forgive. We use every experience God gives us as an opportunity to put on love, to love one another. Paul tells the church at Rome in Romans 12, verses 16 through 19, and I'll just summarize it here. Live in harmony with everyone. As much as it depends on you, live at peace with all people. Boy, that is so hard in this day and age. We are using such words that are so hurtful with each other. Because our thought process is, if you don't believe like me, then you must be wrong and you're a horrible person. Specifically in the political arena. We've lost the art of patience and living in harmony. But we can get it back. We can get it back by seeking the things that are above. Because our efforts should be focused on eternity. The 99 feet of rope that's stretching out the back door, not the 2 inches of tape on the end of that rope. Seeking or thinking about eternity and not about this life. And that is where we find the peace of Christ. In the last couple of verses in Colossians 3:16 and 17, it says, after he talks about since you've died with him, since you've been raised with him, put off these things, put on these things, seek the things that are above. He says, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. And listen to this verse, and whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the Father's name. Do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. There's only one way to fill the void that sin has left in us, and that is with Christ, because Christ is our life. And because he is, we seek the things that are above. If you have not made Christ your life, if you have not died with him, then you have not been raised with him. And if you have not died with him, then, and you want to, come sit on the front pew, right here. Our elder will sit with you, and you can tell him, I want to die with Christ so that I can be raised with him. I want to put off the old person, and I want to put on the new self. And then you can. You can reenact his death and his burial and his resurrection. And in doing so, your old body, the body of sin, will be brought to nothing. The old man will be crucified, and God will add you to the body of Christ. Or maybe you need prayers and you didn't get a chance to write it down. Come down front. Let us know. We would like nothing more. We would consider it an honor to lift you up to the Father and to ask him to intervene in your life. Whatever we can do that would show you the love of God, let us know while we stand and while we sing.